Hello everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, wherever you're in the world. Welcome to my daily Instagram live / YouTube, depending on which platform you're watching this on. Today we are studying the book of Deuteronomy, continuing the series, and we are on chapter 19. So, shall we do a quick recap of chapter 18? Ooh.
The Levitical priests.
Hold on. They want to narrate to us. Okay, so let's recap. So yesterday we spoke about chapter 18, and it was talking about the Levites and that they were, what their role was with God, basically. That they weren't granted an inheritance because they were going to be taken care of by God directly. So it said that the Lord was their inheritance for them to have faith, for they were the servants of God. And then it also said that because they were so in favor of the Lord was also going to make sure that the community also took care of the Levites. It also went into talking about occult practices and why that is detestable to the Lord, what to look out for. These practices are not of God. They might portray that they are, but God is warning us of different things that are out there for us to be aware of and to not be fooled. For it is in His word to stay away from. It also talks about the prophets and what does that look like? That a prophet is not a prophet if what they say is going to happen does not come to pass, because God, if it's a message from God, it is going to be factual every single time. He does not miss and He does not lie. So yeah, to just be careful of people that practice sorcery, people that claim to be driven by spirituality, that they have some kind of powers and stuff, because more than likely they're not getting their abilities from God. And if that is the case, that means that they are not going to be spot on with all of their visions and that kind of stuff, because they're influenced by a totally different power, and you don't know what the manipulation of the other power and what their purposes with those people are. And because these people that are given these gifts and whatnot don't know the difference, it's a very dangerous game. Whereas they might feel like they have the right intentions, but like I said, the power that's giving them their gifts has a whole different agenda. So then,
Deuteronomy 19.
I don't know why this keeps playing. Okay, so then we are at 19. And 19 speaks about a couple things that we still have in our world today, and a couple things that have been expired and they're no longer. So one of the things that it talks about is cities of refuge. So in the Bible, God said for the Israelites to set aside some land, so to divide the land up into 3 equal parts, and then set aside those places for a city of refuge. So what a city of refuge was, or what it was intended for, was that if in the event there is an accident that happens in which, let's say the example that it uses is, for instance, verse 5, a man may go into the forest with his neighbor to cut wood, and as he swings his axe to fall a tree, the head may fly off and hit his neighbor and kill him. That man may flee to one of these cities to save his life. So it is a place of refuge in which, until your case is heard, you have a place to escape, so that you are not, so that nobody tries to seek revenge or commit to kind of take matters into their own hands. You're going to have a fair trial, in other words, but you got to escape and keep yourself safe until that happens. So that was what the cities of refuge were for. it says, verse 6, otherwise the avenger of blood might pursue him in a rage, overtake him in the distance is too if the distance is too great, and kill him, even though he is not deserving of death, since he did it to his neighbor without malice, aforethought. So it was not an intentional crime. However, it happened, but that person that passed away may have had family, and all they hear is, so-and-so killed your loved one. And in a rage, they're not thinking, they just want to seek retaliation. So that was exactly why the cities of refuge were to be in place, because it's kind of like, it's like I think in layman's terms, I think the best way to think of cities of refuge is this is a place for timeout. A place where you can remove yourself from the area that this happened, so that everybody can think and not make decisions off of anger and rage and that kind of stuff. And then that way you could have a much fairer trial. So it also said that if in the event that you are obedient as people, hold on a second, I guess Steez. Thank you. So, if you are obedient as people, then he's going to give you a lot more land than, he's been intended at first. He will multiply the area times 3 again. So that gives you more area to divide for more cities of refuge. So now, these cities of refuge, it mentioned not just what we mentioned earlier, but also that he wanted a certain part of the land to be innocent of bloodshed. So if any matters had to be handled, they could be handled over there, not in the core of the place where everybody comes to worship or to serve God. So there's been pretty much just a division of the land and why it was divided and what the purpose was for. Then it also says, verse 14, do not move your neighbor's boundary stones set up by your predecessors in the inheritance you receive in the land the Lord your God is giving you to possess. That is basically like saying that if you move a boundary stone, you're stealing somebody's land, because God allotted you to have this amount of land, and when you move a boundary stone, you're being deceitful and portraying that your property goes beyond the the boundaries that it was actually given or gifted. So you're trying to be deceitful and steal land. So not to do that. This is basically like an honor system in any way, shape, or form, but also to realize that God is watching and he can see all. So tread very lightly. He's giving you the rules. If you break them, then you have to deal with him later. But if you do break rules and somebody sees you, and mind you, remember that it said that there has to be at least 2 to 3 witnesses in order for you to be, it'll be unanimously guilty. But if there's 1 witness, then you will have to go to trial. And another detestable crime is if a false witness occurs in which this person accuses you of something that you did not do, that person is to be handled accordingly, in the matter of the crime that they were intended to commit. These times were very, I wouldn't want to say, I don't know the word, but in these times, crimes weren't taken lightly. They were handled more seriously because of the idea that the land of the Israelites was supposed to be a very pure land. It had a very big purpose. These were the chosen people. So most of the malicious people and the criminals were supposed to be purged from the land. And by purge, I mean they were supposed to be gone. So let's say that I accuse somebody of doing a crime and the crime is punishable by death, then that kind of means that I'm setting somebody up to get killed. And if they're innocent, then that makes me worse. That makes me very guilty because my intention is to get somebody murdered for a crime that they didn't commit. So my punishment would then be I now am put up on the block for being so that is where the law that is in verse 21 that says, show no pity, life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot. So if you ever heard an eye for an eye, it came from the Bible. And back then, that's how they were to be dealt with because, like I said, the land was supposed to be pure. So they took criminals and crimes and that kind of stuff in that land specifically very, very seriously. It was intended to be kind of like a safe haven. And anybody that was going against that was going against the plan that God had for the land. So that is it for chapter 19. I'm going to go ahead and open up the discussion to the comments section. So if there's anything that you would like to add to that as far as what you read or what you heard just now, you might have not read the book by yourself, but let's discuss. Peace Over Mind says, eye for an eye. Yes. I think a lot of us have heard of the eye for eye. And then we've also heard that Jesus was an advocate against that policy. So that was around the times where it was then changed to an eye for an eye will make the whole world blind. Obviously, I'm paraphrasing. But, you know, in the times of Deuteronomy, it was very important to be strict. Like I said, it had its purpose. Corinne Keller says, does plans of God are better justified than the courts? I think you had a typo in there. Try to understand what you're trying to say. Are you saying, does the plans of God supersede the courts? I don't know. I wonder if you're talking about back then or now. But it appears that if you're speaking about back then, the law was from God. So that's how, that's how they got their, I guess, their conduct was from the word that was given to Moses, and it was passed down to the Israelites. So it was specifically for God. So it's not like the humans came together and they decided their own laws or anything like that. So I would say in these times, God's law was up here, and then the courts was basically also appointed by God. So the courts was just people that were serving God, attempting to enforce what God's will was. Peace Over Mind says, the Bible did say these things, but after Jesus gave his life for our sins, so we don't work like that anymore. We work as Jesus would. Absolutely. It's definitely a different time, and the ultimate sacrifice has been paid. And that's why a lot of the things that they used to do in the book of Deuteronomy are no longer required, such as the animal sacrifices. You don't see that anymore. And if you do see it, it's not, it's not a part of the Bible per se. That's probably a different set of religious beliefs that they're following. But I don't like to say that the law was done away with, especially, from reading the book of Deuteronomy with this series. I think I'm gaining a little bit more understanding as to, the timeline and the exact facts that come with the book of Deuteronomy. But it's more that it seems like the law was amended based off of Jesus and the sacrifice of Jesus. So a lot of those laws are still intact. They're not changed. It's not that, okay, so because Jesus was, the ultimate sacrifice, now you can go worship other gods and it's not detestable. Absolutely not. Not worshiping other gods still stands as a law. The 10 Commandments still stand as a law. However, the amendment is more in what the punishment is going to be. Whereas the punishment was death. The punishment, the wage of sin was through death. Now the amendment is, it's still death, but it's death of the physical rather than the whole being. So spiritually, you can be new if you repent. So, we will get to that eventually. I'm not sure if we'll get to that in Deuteronomy, but definitely in one of these series we'll get to that. Okay, so Karen Keller was talking about the law now. So you're saying that does the law of God supersede the law now? And that is interesting because now that I'm reading the book of Deuteronomy and really hearing the facts of it, a lot of the law is very consistent with what the Bible does. Like, for example, the witness thing, it is like saying first of all, when you go to court, you have to pledge under oath. And you put your hand on a Bible and you say, I solemnly swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth and all that stuff, right? Where do you think that came from? It mentioned it here. It mentioned that when you're under oath, you're under you're basically like swearing under God. So if you tell a lie, then that is something that you'll have to deal with God later. So that came from that. Then the witness thing, that still applies today, as far as not one witness is not really enough to convict you of anything. You're going to have to need a little bit more proof than that. It's innocent until proven guilty, right? And then there's a couple other things that I feel like are still in effect today. Obviously, the eye for an eye, like I said, that was amended. That no longer exists. I'm sure we'll get more examples. But is the law different from God's law? Yeah, of course, because they're trying to take God out of they're trying to take God out of everything nowadays, so the things that were a crime back then may not be a crime now because they've had to remove things based off of different people's differences and beliefs. So, for example, people are free now in some countries, like the United States where I live. They're free if they want to worship Satan and they want to worship, sun gods or other gods. That's not something that somebody could take you to court for and convict you of, right? But back in these times, it's saying that was the most detestable sin. So in their courts, they would be punished by death for something like that. So you can get away with that now today. So it really just depends on which perspective you're looking at it from, what supersedes the other. Because for me, I think that the laws that I would follow would be more so, I'm going to pay more attention to what the Bible is telling me not and what to do and what not to do, rather than, the fact that the earth allows you to do almost anything, except you can't kill somebody and you can't steal and whatever, but you could do all kinds of things that are against the spirituality of the Bible. So that's up to you. Kristen, what are your thoughts on God judging those in the land which innocent blood is shed? What are your thoughts on God judging those? I'm confused on your question. Like, what do you mean, what are my thoughts? Like, do I like it? Or what are you asking? Work with peace and hope to change everyone's heart from pain into peace. Like that. What if Moses lied? What if he wrote the law? I mean, what if I was born a man? Then I wouldn't be a girl. You know, like, you could say what if all day. But what I can say about that is I think that a lot of the things, as far as the consistency of the Bible, cannot be a coincidence. It cannot be something that's unnatural. They try to destroy the Bible. I don't know if you guys know this, but they try to destroy the Bible. They try to burn all kinds of books and, you know, only leave certain ones and whatever. They tried to erase the Word of God. And for it to be able to still persist despite all their efforts to get rid of it, I think that it's kind of like a divine intervention phenomenon. I don't think that that's human in any way, shape, or form. And the reason why I believe stuff like that is because a lot of books in the Bible tell stories that where God says, I did this and I intervened, and, you know, like, nobody can destroy what is meant to be. Nobody can destroy what is meant to come to pass. I don't think that Moses had that kind of power to, you know, be manipulative and write a law that he just created by himself. And if he did, then why would he write something that actually disqualified him from making it into the promised land himself? So, you know, Moses was just like us. He was a messenger, but that didn't mean that he was free of judgment. So let me take one more. Do I think the increase of crimes is part of the end of times? More than likely. I mean, not even just the end of times in general, but I think as we go along, people become further and further away from connection. People become further and further away from I don't want to say religious beliefs, but they become further and further away from the factor of, or the real, or in touch of who was actually there to see certain things and why certain things were happening. Like, okay, so the further away people got from being able to live when Jesus Christ walked the earth, now people are starting to be like, well, did that really happen? You know, because they said that it happened that long ago, but, you know, why would I believe that? What if somebody made it up, etc.? You know, whereas people that are closer to that time, it would be really hard for them not to believe something that there was so many witnesses and so many generations actually experienced, you know? So I feel like, obviously, the further and further away we get from that time, things are going to start, you know, disintegrating and whatnot. And that has been written. It's been written in the Bible that's meant to happen. That's going to happen. We are not meant to be here forever. And when it's time for us to not be here anymore, it's going to be absolute chaos. If you don't believe me, read the book of Revelation so that you can see what is to come. But yeah, I'm sure it's going to get worse and worse every single generation that we go. Okay, I'm going to stop there. Thank you guys for tuning in, and thank you guys for your contribution to the conversation today. I really enjoyed reading your guys' comments and your add-ons and etc. Just hearing what you guys had to say. I feel like a lot of today was just really on topic, and it seems like a lot of you are coming back and, a part of the conversation for, actually in touch with what the conversation is about. So thank you guys for that. I am going to post this to my YouTube after I save it. All of the YouTube videos from before are uploaded and updated, so we're caught up. And yeah, that is it. So if I didn't get to your comment, please continue the conversation in the comment section when I post this to YouTube. That is all. Have a good night. Ciao.